Hey there YouTube, Smith here from Minute Maintenance, coming at you on an actual sunny day here for once in the Midwest. And what are we going to deal with today? Today we're going to try to identify a fluid leak. Stick with me, got to get some maintenance done. Alright guys, what we have for us today as always is this 2007 Ford Expedition with the 5.4 liter Triton V8 motor. And when I came out to my driveway today to enjoy this beautiful weather, I couldn't happen but help to notice that puddle underneath my truck, coming from the front of my truck there. Obviously, that's very concerning. We gotta try to figure out what's going on there. This isn't my daily driver anymore. Now, I'm generally driving my Ford F-150, but still, you wanna make sure any vehicle that you have is in operable condition, because you never know when one of your other vehicles is gonna go down. If you have a spare, if you need to help somebody out, it's nice to make sure what's going on and get things taken care of. Now, one of the first things you wanna do when trying to identify a fluid leak is figure out what is the positioning. Now what that means is, where is the puddle coming from? Is it coming from the back or from the front? And one thing that can throw that off is clearly it's coming from the front of the car, right? Well, what's the grading? What's the level of the driveway, of the road, of wherever you're parked? Because if the front end is facing up, if the leak originates by the engine or by the oil pan, if the front end's pointing up because it's parked on a hill somehow, it could run down and then drop further back, making you think the fluid leak is somewhere in the middle or somewhere towards the back. And the same thing's the opposite. If the front end's pointing down, same thing. If there's a fluid leak in the back, it could roll and then drop further up. So let's try to figure out what the grading is. Now my driveway does have a slight slant to it, so the nose is slightly pointed up. So that could be affecting where that fluid leak is coming from, but let's go ahead and crawl underneath and see if we can identify it a little bit further. All right, guys, now here we are underneath. One of the other things you want to try to look for is, what is the color? Can you tell the color of it? Now, looking at it, it appears to be a pinkish red tint. You see that, guys? It's a bit of a pinkish red tint. So that leads me to believe it's possibly transmission related. But what we have up here in this particular general vicinity, we have the transmission pan, we have transmission lines, we have the front differential. So it's possible, which also takes gear oil. So it's possible that it could be coming from the differential, because that differential tends to have this type of transmission fluid color to it as well. So let's see if we can look up and figure out where exactly it's coming from. So this is our transmission pan right here, guys. This right here is the transmission pan. And right now, it appears pretty bone dry, but if you look along the back there, you see that wetness? That's how you identify a leak. Where's the moisture coming from? Where's the wetness? On the sides here of this transmission pan, everything looks nice and dry, but right back there, it's wet. So that leads me to believe that a possible active leak coming from the back end of the transmission pan. And if we look towards the front, similar. It's a little moisture up there, not nearly as bad. Not nearly as bad as in the back. So given the fact that there's a bit of this truck has been sitting for a while through a long cold winter, what happens in the cold, guys? The cold makes things shrink. Because I don't drive this very often, it's very possible this transmission gasket shrunk in the cold, and if that shrank, that can expose cracks for the transmission fluid, just slowly weep itself out. Vehicles like to move. Vehicles like to be constantly moving, just like people. They don't like to sit still. If something sits for too long, things will develop, things will work their way out. So what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to drop this transmission pan and swap out that gasket. So now that we identified our leak, what is our attack plan? Can we drive the vehicle right now? Well, there's not that much transmission fluid down there. I know that looked like a big spill, but it tends to spread out, so it makes it look bigger than it really is. I do believe I could still drive this truck if I needed to. Thankfully, it's nice out. I can ride the motorcycle. The F-150 is working just fine. I can take those where I need to. I'm unable to actually fix this leak right now because I don't have the actual parts on hand. What I'll need is a new transmission filter, because we're going to drop the pan. I'm going to swap out the filter at the same time. I'll need a new transmission gasket. And then what I'm also going to do, I'm going to film this for you guys because I highly recommend doing this. If you're doing your own transmission job at home, one of the most frustrating parts is the transmission pan doesn't have an actual drain plug. Like the oil pan, you can drain the oil before dropping the pan. The transmission pan, you have to slowly remove bolts, drop down one corner, let it drain, remove more bolts, pull it down a little bit further. It's a very time-consuming and messy process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to order an aftermarket drain plug so that I can actually install that into the transmission pan to make my jobs in the future a lot easier, because I like to do my own transmission fluids once every 50,000 miles, keeps everything nice and fresh. It'll just make doing that maintenance in the future a little bit easier. So what I have to do today is go to the auto parts store, order an aftermarket transmission pan plug. I'll have to order a new transmission filter and a new transmission gasket, pan gasket for this Ford Expedition. So unfortunately, there's not much maintenance getting done today, but we're able to identify that leak, and that's very important, guys. If you see any fluids under your vehicles, you got to figure out what it is. Is it oil? Is it life-threatening to the life of the truck? Is it something you can still carry on? Is it simply condensation? We got to figure out based on the color, based on the location it's dripping. Also, what is the angle of the vehicle? Because that'll affect the location of it. And then the amount. We figured those things out. The truck is still operable. I don't need to operate it right now, so I'm gonna gather the proper materials that I need so I can get this job done right and make the jobs a lot easier in the future when I do more transmission work. So I'll come at you guys in a couple days. Once those parts come in, I'll get that transmission pan dropped. I'll install the new drain plug and show you guys how to do an aftermarket drain plug and put a new gasket in, and we'll get this knocked out here in a couple days. Look forward to that video, guys. And as always, find a minute out of your own day to do some maintenance. We'll catch you next time.